We are at ground zero for the earthquake. So 8 years ago, this would have been a bustling square. There would have been Starbucks over there. There would have been a cafe and whatnot. And then 8 years later, we're still in flux with what happened to our cathedral. So it has been finally reconciled that they will rebuild it and it will look like it used to look, but it won't be built of stone like it was built. So the stone will just be a facade. This is the first time in 8 years I've seen anybody behind the fence doing stuff. It really has been a bit of a scar for the city.
Today I'm in downtown Christchurch with a group of students from Oxford University in the UK.
Amazing how long it took to decide.
Oh, absolutely.
Every year, dozens of students come here to learn about the city's earthquake recovery and the University of Canterbury's community engagement story. This story started with a rumble in the night. Major earthquakes hit Christchurch in 2010 and 2011. They were an incredible jolt of energy, surprise, shock, and horror. My immediate post-quake experience was pulling down my destroyed chimney along with a neighbor. We then moved down our street, taking other chimneys down. In some houses, people weren't even there, but we took down their cracked and shattered brick chimneys anyway to prevent further damage. This showed me that Kiwis tend to approach challenges with compassion and a DIY spirit. In A Paradise Built in Hell, Rebecca Solnit found that there's a short period after major disasters when the best of humanity shines through. In Christchurch, everyone wanted to help, and UC students found a practical solution.
Good morning. Driver's license, UCSA card. There you go.
Sam Johnson created a Facebook event seeking volunteers to help out in the hardest hit community. Students turned up in the thousands. Across two major quakes, the numbers kept growing and growing. In the end, over 11,000 people volunteered. It was the Kiwi DIY spirit in action.
Hey Billy. Hey, how are you? Good. How are you? Good. So what were you doing before September the 4th, 2010? What was your story?
Well, I was here at the university, and really I was just a student, as in third year, and then the earthquakes happened. I grew up on a farm.
Okay.
Pretty practically minded family. I lived in a flat in Riccarton at the time, and was just thinking, oh well, what can we do? We didn't lose our power, we didn't lose our water, we didn't own the house. We were all on Facebook. I was invited to 4 earthquake after parties.
Right.
They were great parties, but we thought, well, what's something better you can do at this stage? And that's really how the whole thing started.
Right.
And it was just an event on Facebook called the UC Student Base for Earthquake Cleanup.
Yep.
The very bright, intelligent girls in our team, they renamed it Student Volunteer Army. And then slowly it just grew from that. Every day more and more people came along. And then over successive earthquakes, more and more people came to help out. Because it was such a simple thing. It's like, okay, there's a lot of silt here, there is a lot of students around, let's match the two together and see what happens. Everyone had a different team, everyone has a different role. You're going to say, you're in charge of food, can you make food for 1,000 people?
Right.
And we had a sponsorship team, can you guys find some money to do this project? And then an equipment team, can you find some equipment so we can do these projects?
How did you all ramp up from a couple of thousand in 2010 to over 10,000 in 2011?
Good communication, really clear purpose, really clear value proposition, really clear instructions. Turn up at the university, you'll get a briefing, you go on a bus, you'll help out people in the community and yourself for the day. You feel like you're contributing, you're doing something that's helping others. It's a really simple task. You get well fed, well watered, and come home, and it's fun, and you meet new people.
I spent the last couple of days helping like neighbours, and there's some stuff around my area, but we're running out. You know, if you want to go any further, you've got to find an organisation.
When you finish that property, if you weren't on the Riverside Street, which is Holveston, come back out to it. We're going to cruise all the way down.
You're talking about the student army. They're just incredible. These 20 or 30 walk up there and then they walk back again, all working non-stop. It's just incredible. They're certainly doing themselves a lot of good in the university.
The first quake left a few downtown buildings damaged beyond repair. As they were pulled down, they left empty spaces or gaps. Community arts leaders Coralie Wynn and Ryan Reynolds approached the owner of one such space with a bold request. Could they host a 2-week party there? That was the start of Gap Filler.
Let's go back to September 3rd, 2010.
Yes.
What were you guys up to then?
We were in Wellington touring a show with Free Theatre. Days entirely free, performing in the evening.
Very
And there was
strange.
this spot on Cuba Street that had been a car yard, and someone had created a little garden cafe. They had a little...
Okay.
It was a nursery cafe,
food truck.
actually. You could buy the plants
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Yep. And it looked amazing.
They planted the
Wow.
seed, I think, and then
Yeah.
we came back and we spent time adjusting to what had happened and riding bikes around and seeing demolitions or seeing
Yep.
broken buildings and processing and kind of grieving a bit.
Because you all lived in the city.
Yeah, we
didn't you?
lived, yeah, we did. From the idea taking root of let's do a project on a vacant site to the actual first project was about a month,
Okay.
I think. We gathered 3 other people with us for that first project, just our own money. We didn't apply for any funding. We just kind of borrowed things and got things from the dump and painted them and created this garden space of our own on a vacant site, had a coffee truck, and then had music at night and outdoor cinema.
Yeah, our idea was probably that there might be half a dozen projects in it or something after the September quake. But we also had a lot of people, you know, walking down Colombo Street, and they'd stop and see our little kitschy garden, whatever it was, and walk on and say, you know what I've always wanted to do? Yeah, our second project, still before February, we did an outdoor photo exhibition.
Yep.
About 3 weeks later, or 4 weeks, we had the February 2011 quake, so, you know, a lot worse situation. Many people died, terrible damage to the city, massive cordon all around the city. Gap Filler sort of put something on Facebook like,
Yeah, we tried to wind down.
we asked that, what do you think we should do? And people said, no,
Yeah.
keep going, please do something.
Yeah.
And actually the dominant thing or idea suggested was please do more outdoor cinema. And that sense of coming together as a community on a vacant site, it's an active creative healing, I guess, or people were processing.
There was a lot to process. Civil defense took over the downtown. The slow job of repairing infrastructure and demolishing and rebuilding much of the inner city crawled on over months and years. Large areas of residential land deemed unstable were sold to the government, and all the houses were demolished.
This is the heart of the residential red zone in Christchurch. So this area once contained around 11,000 houses. After the 2011 earthquake, they were deemed uninhabitable. The Student Volunteer Army came in here after 2010, 2011 and did some significant work clearing the liquefaction. Then the houses were deemed uninhabitable by the government, so the government bought these houses from people. And before they were bulldozed, we were allowed to come back in with another group of students from the University of Canterbury and take down fences and decks and sheds, and we recycled that material for other projects in the city. This was quite a desirable place to live and raise a family, you know, and if we were here on a summer's day like today, 9 years ago, there would be kids riding bikes and people on the sidewalks and people having barbecues and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of amazing to think, you know, within a decade, this went from a thriving place to live to now looking like this. Right now, there's a bit of debate going on about the future use of this 1,200 acres of land. But the eventual outcome of this will be quite interesting because it's rare that you would have 1,200 acres within the city limits of a city the size of Christchurch. And so the question, you know, is what would you do with this amount of land that's wide open and available for something?
The university was changing too.
Because most of the campus is still closed and they want to start lectures as soon as possible, they've decided to erect some tents on the law and fine arts car parks.
The displacement here and here, right? And the average velocity was this.
After months of teaching in tents, buildings were repaired, and over the years, new buildings rose. And we were open to new ideas too. exploring new ways of engaging with our community. The Student Volunteer Army showed us that UC students had a passion for volunteering. The creation of the Christchurch 101 course offered students an opportunity to bring that passion into the classroom. We connected their experiences with relevant academic content and critical reflection. The major assignment for the course invites students to develop a healing proposal. They come up with a way to improve a specific aspect of a community. Many of these proposals have actually been implemented.
This is a creation of one of the students who took Christchurch 101, a woman named Felicity Powell. And for her assignment in the class, she created a little book that was an interactive guidebook of Christchurch. It was sort of a graphic novel kind of spin on it and had you go around Christchurch and do different activities in different places. So then she has snowballed that into having her own publishing company and then creating this for these hoardings or these fences that are around the new convention center that's being built.
For Ryan and Coralie of Gap Filler, what started off as a one-off experiment just kept expanding. More and more projects enlivened empty sites that were once home to a densely built city, but were now covered in gravel and weeds.
You don't know who's dancing on the dance-o-mat as we speak, right?
Google
People are quite
Glass.
happy dancing there. They see this sort of Gap Filler logo. They may or may not know what it means. It doesn't really matter, right? Once you've sort of created it, then you leave it as a gift for other people to enjoy.
Absolutely. And also to interact with it in completely different ways to what we imagined.
Yeah.
It takes on a life of its own once it's live. You know, it's so many, like with public projects, you lose control once you put it out there.
Yeah. How do we come to be sitting in a parking lot?
All of this land from kind of the row of poplar trees all the way down to almost C1 is an area that's, the Crown bought up all the land and they said it's going to be medium density housing, apartments, townhouses all through here. But some of the sites aren't going to be built on for 4, 5, 6 years, whatever. And at some stage we got engaged to put together a plan. And they pointed to 2 big sites on the map and said those will just stay car parks. Could we run the car park ourselves and put all the money into community and do a bit more interesting community stuff actually with the car park? So
they said yes to that, but people really like that the money that they're giving to the car park, they can see what it's doing.
Yeah.
We made an early decision not to repeat ourselves.
Yep.
A lot of people at that first project said, this is great, when are you going to do it again? And the implication was, when are you going to do the same thing again?
Yeah, people love the cinema. They love the cinema.
But we also had a lot of people, you know, walking down Colombo Street and they'd stop and see our little kitschy garden, whatever it was, and walk on and say, you know what I've always wanted to do? So the idea is to stretch people just a little bit. If people are open to new ideas, you know, for a temporary period after the quakes, let's extend that. Let's make that an ongoing thing. Just the placement of this is a shared pathway. People commute to work along here with their bikes or whatever. So we put the track right alongside here. Obviously
So
some
you can
families
just take a little detour off.
Exactly. Great to see all the kids here. What makes me happiest is, you know, the lady in a business dress or whatever who's riding along here on her way to work and just takes one shot, boom, woo, on the way to work.
Discovery and playfulness in the city. And it's actually about how we interact with the city. Like, what is the city for? Cities are about people coming together, shared experiences, public spaces, participate, all of those things. So I guess that's how we see our projects.
Over these same recovery years, the Student Volunteer Army did not, as one might have expected, disappear.
Student Army is a movement, not an organization.
Instead, it became the largest club on campus with over 3,000 members. And it also changed and adapted, from emergency responders to a service club with people getting together to do worthwhile and needed community work.
What was your vision for where this was going to go post-earthquake?
Always the challenge of how do you keep it going? So right from the start, how do you get people who have turned up once to do this pretty grueling work shoveling silt, how do we get them to turn up tomorrow? So make it easy for them. Give them good food. Make them feel appreciated. Have someone's role just be like, hello, good morning, thank you so much for coming, and enthusiasm on the door to make sure they feel appreciated. In many senses, it's a marketing exercise to put it out there to student volunteers and members of the community and say, hey, there's this great opportunity, come and help us, and you'll get something out of it too.
Right.
And it's worthwhile.
Right.
And our job is to do that. And it's been a major principle for years now of leaving SVA to be a student-run initiative. And that's kept it alive, it's kept it fresh, it's kept it vibrant. Groups of people identifying a project and doing something about it with others.
Cultivate is another post-quake social innovation.
So there used to be an apartment building on this piece of land and a parking lot on the other part of land. So they both came down during the earthquakes. They both were ruined during the earthquakes. And so these guys came in a little bit over 2 years ago and now have this working farm. So they sell produce from here, they give produce away, they collect the compost of area restaurants and whatnot, turn it back into soil.
But perhaps the most important thing they do is provide young people with job experiences. Their motto, changing young lives through farming.
Yeah, as a slogan, replace mass production with production by the masses. So it's kind of what we're aspiring to.
Nice.
For a farming system to be sustainable, you have to be building soil. So that's kind of our baseline. As far as, say, like you take a cabbage out, you're replacing it with the equivalent, if not more, of an organic input, and the best is compost. Yeah. We collect from restaurants in the bins. The wood chip is just local arborists. It's really about starting with what you've got, where you're at, and galvanising a conversation around where it is that you'd really like to go to. It's a combination of transitional housing, one-stop shop for youth health services or youth support services, as well as a place where people can just come to gain work experience or even employment, and avoid loading on clinical services. We do a lot of our counselling is done here essentially by stealth, because there are counsellors in our team, but they're working on the farm and they just know how to open up safe space for conversation, and it's, all of us do really.
Christchurch has a long way to go. We're still figuring out who we are and what we want to be. Civic and government projects have played a part in this too.
This is the Margaret Mahi Family Playground. It's intended for big kids, little kids, in between. A bit of questioning about the amount of money that was being spent on it and would it actually bring people back to the city, and it has resoundingly. It's been a huge success.
In A Paradise Built in Hell, Rebecca Solnit looks at 5 disasters. In each one, she found a window of utopia opened. The best aspects of humanity came through. People helped each other. They worked together. But that window isn't open for long. What we've seen in Christchurch, with Gap Filler, the Student Volunteer Army, Cultivate, numerous other social innovations, is people trying to keep that window open and hold on to the best parts of ourselves.